Share the screen. Here we go. Let me know when that comes through. All right. Well, I have two presentations today. I've decided to break this up, so we've got two PowerPoint presentations. One is on Inside OSD Cloud, and then afterwards it's going to be Autopilot OOBE. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm David Segura. I'm very frequent on Twitter, and that's pretty much it. I'm a manager with Baker Hughes. I manage our OS deployment team, and I like to share different PowerShell modules with the community, basically on OS deployment. They're all centered around the same exact thing because that's what I do. And I am not a PowerShell expert. So I wanted to make that clear. My first and foremost responsibility with the community is for OS deployment, and I just happen to do a little PowerShell on the side. And so this presentation, I'm going to go over something I did share with the community called OSDCloud. It is PowerShell based, but for those of you who are here to learn PowerShell and have no clue what OSD is, let me get you up to speed real quick. So OSD stands for Operating System Deployment. And for the specific case of what we're using it for at our company, we image a clean OS on a system so that we can run through something called Microsoft Autopilot. And this is basically, it's a system preparation where it connects to our Azure cloud and downloads all of our software and applications. So in order to get to that point, we have to have a clean operating system installed. And what that means is it can't be a customized OS. You can use an OS from Dell or HP, a restore CD, or download a clean image from Microsoft. And so what I did was I took all of the individual PowerShell scripts and modules that I use for drivers and downloading updates and the OS, and I put them all together into something I call OSDCloud, and it provides a very simple and easy way to image a computer from the larger manufacturers, Dell, Lenovo, HP, and Microsoft, and to prepare it for autopilot. And we need to do this in WinPE, which is Windows pre-installation environment, in order to provision the OS. So as I was mentioning, what is OSDCloud? It's something that that's the PowerShell functions that work together to create a universal WinPE. And the biggest thing that had to happen was I had to enable PowerShell Gallery in WinPE, which is not native. It doesn't normally work by default. And additionally, WinPE doesn't support wireless. That's something that's only supported in Windows recovery environment. So I had to design a method to get PowerShell Gallery working and a simple way to get wireless support. Once that's done, in Windows PE, I can download from Microsoft a current Windows 10 image, and then I'll go to whatever vendor we're using. In our environment, we use Dell and Lenovo, and we'll download the drivers straight from these manufacturers. Optionally, I'll use OSDCloud to apply an autopilot configuration file or pre-install Microsoft 365. So why is this important? Because traditionally, when we image a computer, we have to have all the resources either on our USB stick or on a server. But this approach is rather different because it pulls everything from the cloud. Like I mentioned, the Microsoft feature update is Windows 10, and that's pulled straight from Microsoft, and the Dell drivers are pulled straight from the manufacturers. So in this case, OSDCloud doesn't use any infrastructure only an internet connection. And in order to kick off OSDCloud, as I mentioned, PowerShell Gallery has to work in WinPE, but there are some minimum requirements, Windows 10 1809, and a good fast internet connection. So briefly, the problem with Windows PE, and I had mentioned this earlier, is PowerShell Gallery does not work. You'll see that as the last bullet. Does not work out of the box. Also, you have to add .NET and PowerShell from the Microsoft ADK. Another problem I ran into is invoke web request to download a 4 gig image is awful. WinPE doesn't support wireless networking, so as I had mentioned, I use WinRE with some minor modifications. So let's take a look at why PowerShell Gallery doesn't work in WinPE. And what I have is I have a screenshot from my Windows pre-installation environment that I've booted to. And you should be able to see these error messages and kind of get a general understanding. What I first did was try to install any module, doesn't matter what it is. And I get a PowerShell get error. From there, I try to import PowerShell get, and of course, I've get another error for package management not loaded. And then once I try to install package management, I find myself in a circular loop where I can't install any resources, package providers, or modules because I don't have package management. And so I end up getting in this circular loop where there's nothing I can do once I'm in WinPE. I can further import PowerShell get with force, and I'll see a little, some more error messages, which are very specific if you actually read them. The error message is faulting on local app data. And what I realized was that WinPE does not have certain environment variables for local app data. And that's what was preventing PowerShell Gallery from working in the first place. That prevented PowerShell get from functioning, which prevented package management from coming down. And so what I ended up doing was writing a simple PowerShell function. And as you can see here, this is a snippet of the function that I wrote that actually enables PowerShell Gallery support in WinPE. And as you can see, I wrote a simple driver, which is my INF content, to write the app data, local app data, environment variables into the session manager environment so that they would be available when I booted WinPE. You can't simply set these variables once PE is running. They have to be running before WinPE loads for them to actually work. And once I've created this INF, I go ahead and set the content and I use add Windows driver. Now this is all done to a mounted WinPE. So I've used mount Windows image, and I will go ahead and run this function against it, which will take this driver, copy it to the system and install it. From there, I can save my package management and PowerShell get, which would be the updated versions from PowerShell Gallery, because the ones that are in WinPE are very old. And so this was the approach I took. And then once I did that, everything seemed to work fine. PowerShell Gallery worked perfectly. So the design around OSDCloud is, because WinPE is not a standard WinPE, there are some modifications in order to get PowerShell Gallery working. I ended up designing another function to build an OSDCloud template. And what this is basically used for, it creates a master WinPE that has all of these fixes for PowerShell Gallery support, updating the ADK packages. And you can see here, it adds curl, setx. Curl is the curl from Windows that Microsoft started shipping. MS-Info32 is copied from the running OS, as well as the on-screen keyboard and Dart if Microsoft Dart is installed. Optionally, Windows recovery environment can be used to build out this WinPE. And finally, language resources can be added. And to give you an example of what is all built into this function, and I try to put as much detail and documentation when the function runs. If we look at the command line, the first line on the top, I'm running it with a WinRE switch, WinRE parameter switch that tells it to use Windows recovery environment. Did my mic just drop out? All right. Yeah, headset died. Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay? All right. Let's go back to presentation mode. Do we have any questions while we're here? I think I hear someone.
I think we're good.
So if we look at this build process, we could see that I'm creating the template inside OSDCloud under program data. I'll write a log there. And what I'll do next is copy Windows recovery environment. There's a function that I put in there, and that's the second yellow block where it says copy-winre.wim. That's another function that's part of the PowerShell module that does all of this, that will actually look in the OS and find where your Windows recovery environment is. Very simple function. I can go and show it to you real quick. And so what it first does is it finds the partition where Windows recovery environment resides. Then it reads my RE agent XML to determine the partition number, mounts the partition, copies WinRE, and unmounts the partition. Since I didn't provide a destination, we can see the destination was my temp directory. So very simple function that I had to write in order to get WinRE. We'll go to the next block, replace boot media font. There is a issue where the latest ADK WGL4_boot TTF causes bad resolution. So this was my solution around that. From here, we'll mount the Windows image. We'll do some adjustments to the wallpaper because WinRE doesn't use the standard blue WinPE wallpaper. Finally, you see the wireless block. I'll need to add some files. These files are copied from the running OS in order to enable wireless, as well as a wireless connect.exe pulled from GitHub. Finally, we can see the ADK packages that are being installed in the proper order that they need to be installed in. Continuing on the next page, once the ADK packages are installed, we'll save the image and then copy some additional files. This is curl setx msinfo32 on-screen keyboard support. And if Dart is installed on the computer, then the Dart cab with the Dart config will be extracted into the proper place. Finally, we'll save the Windows image, set the execution policy in the Windows image, so it's not restricted. And then here's the function to enable PowerShell Gallery, enable-ps Windows image PS Gallery. It's quite a mouthful. Once that's completed, make an adjustment to remove WinPE SHL, do some modifications to command and PowerShell console settings, dismount, save the image, export it to compact it, and then that's complete. And once that's complete, we have I have a very clean bootwim. And what I'll do here is I'll just quickly fire up what that looks like. And the neat thing about this WinPE is, you'll see I've copied a custom background, but it's very basic. There's nothing, well, this is a custom with no PowerShell gallery. I got it. So this was, I guess I did this VM so I could show you what PowerShell gallery would look like, how it wouldn't work. And here we go. This is the error messages I was showing in the screenshot. I thought I had a virtual machine without, my apologies, I don't have a VM that's clean. We'll just continue on. So once this template is done, I have another function to create a new workspace. And the workspace is what actually gets customized. It's a very, very quick process. This process only takes, obviously it took 0 seconds on my NVMe drive. And from here, a third function is used to add drivers and to make some customizations that I want for OSDCloud. Some of these options include adding drivers that pull directly from Dell, HP, and Intel Wireless, adding additional PowerShell modules, setting wallpaper, kicking off a script to start automatically. And finally, a function to create a couple ISOs that can be used for booting virtual machines. I know this sounds rather rushed. It's kind of better if you get a visual of what's happening. So this is by default how it boots once I've configured OSDCloud on WinPE. Now this is very hard to see on a small system, small screen, so I'll adjust my resolution. And as you can see, this is WinPE with a SoCal wallpaper. And so I'll kick off WinPE init. This is StartNet up here on the top. I'll open an empty PowerShell window, minimized, and this is so that when OSDCloud is running, you've got another PowerShell instance that you can get to actually, you know, to do anything else. To well, we can run anything in here. Explorer. This is part of Microsoft Dart. This is already included in the template because I had it installed. Finally, it'll kick off the Wi-Fi if I used WinRE, but since I'm not connected on Wi-Fi, I'm in a VM, we just kick me out to a simple PowerShell window. So I'll adjust the size to make it a little easier for everyone to see this. And typically the next step is I will install the OSD module because this WinPE has PowerShell Gallery working. Everything should work just fine. Should have thrown a verbose so we can actually see what it's doing in the background, but as you can see, PowerShell Gallery works, and this is OSDCloud GUI, which is a front end for Start-OSDCloud. Very simple. Again, I'll refer you to the slide that says I'm not a PowerShell expert, but this is essentially what it is. We have a choice of different Windows 10 builds that can be installed, different versions of Windows 10, different editions, Home, Enterprise, Pro, whatever language you want. If Microsoft made it, it's available to be installed. We will just stick with this one. And I can actually set the manufacturer and the product to a different computer manufacturer like an HP. And this allows me to do some driver testing, but I'll leave this by default Microsoft Virtual Machine, and we'll kick this off. And this is what the process does. It looks at some of the other functions that I've written to determine the download link for Windows 10. And once it's gathered all of this information, my language DE-DE, Windows 10 Enterprise 20H2, it will go ahead and wipe my drive after I confirm. And all of these functions that are used are part of the module that had to be written to support this whole process. And it works quite well in that it's fast. This is the download of Windows 10. The total time, this is actually downloading using curl. This was my solution around invoke web request, and it's pretty fast. A 2-minute download of a 4 gig file, that's not too bad. After this is complete, the image will be expanded, and I'll have a clean OS from here within about 5 minutes that will reboot into out-of-box experience. So this is essentially what OSDCloud is. It's all the functions that make this whole process work, all done in PowerShell except obviously the curl download. And we'll let this run in the background. Additionally, I have another few virtual machines where we'll change the resolution on this, make it a little easier to see. But in this actual virtual machine, I ended feeding it a couple different parameters by telling it that I'm a Dell 0A33, which is a product which Dell associates with, I'm sorry about the scrolling. Dell associates this with a Latitude 3120. And if we look, if it tags a model, we can see that it's reached out to Dell in this section here with this function, save my driver pack, and it'll down the driver directly from Dell. Again, not using any of my server storage, pulling everything from the cloud, and from here it will apply the Dell driver. And this is one of the reasons why I've enabled it to where it will allow me to enter parameters to override the model, because being able to test on different models on a virtual machine is priceless. For example, in this case here, I told it that I'm an HP ProBook, and as you can see, this is completely done in Hyper-V virtual machine, but the system doesn't know this. It simply downloads what I tell it it is, and otherwise, if I don't set the parameters, it will figure it out automatically what type of computer it is. So very simple, it's very minimal. We could see it's completed downloading the image on the initial VM that I had within 3 minutes. And now it's going to go ahead and expand the OS to the hard drive. And this is essentially what OSDCloud does. And everything you see here is a function within the OSD PowerShell module. So I know you guys probably want to take a closer look at I think I showed this screenshot on how to enable PowerShell Gallery in WinPE. The new OSDCloud template, again, no PowerShell expert, but this seems to work pretty good. This is what's used to create WinPE. These are the defaults that I'm setting for the console, but everything kind of flows. It's free, it's available. You can download it from GitHub and take a look at any of these functions. There's quite a few. And we'll check back and see what's happening here. Still looking good. And that was kind of a, yes.
Oh, sorry, we had a message from Phil Bossman.
Yes.
Phil wants to know by specifying the model, you're just checking that the proper drivers are downloaded, and then do you validate the specific driver?
Well, the question kind of really is just about, hey, I've never seen it be, model the driver set and stuff like that, or the particular like Dell and all that kind of stuff. So that's a great thing that I'm going to try. But then we also like, hey, did the drivers install right? Is it still, it's a network figure? But like, hey, it's an interesting toy, but it just tells me that I got the drivers. What do you typically do for that? I'm trying to think through that use case.
Well, yes. Yes is the answer to your question. I don't have any HP devices, for example. And let me just make sure this VM is my HP. Nope, this is a Microsoft one. But I really enable this where you can override the devices so I can make sure it's downloading the right pack. But one thing in particular with HP and Lenovo is these drivers are EXE based. And there's a big problem with executables because this is compiled using, I don't know, not sure what they use. But it's a 32-bit application. And if I look on my C drives, on my C drive under drivers, I have a 951 megabyte executable, but no drivers. And so this isn't actually expanded because this EXE is compiled with a 32-bit application. But because I'm in WinPE64, I can't extract the contents of this file. So what I've done with OSDCloud is I've configured this to extract it on the next boot. And hopefully we'll see it here. Sometimes Hyper-V disappears. And then you can actually see what's happening. And the way it's written is the drivers will be expanded on the HP and the Lenovo, and then they will be installed whether the hardware is present or not. And so what that means is, to answer your question, the drivers to support the hardware will be in this image. So you'll know if it installs or not. Even testing it in a virtual machine, you don't have to actually test on a physical hardware. And in my environment at my company, we support over 100 Dell computers, and we just started receiving Lenovo computers. And there is no way that I can physically test on every single one of those devices. But when somebody on the other side of the world calls me and says, I have this ProBook that has a problem, I can simulate it in my OSDCloud and a Hyper-V to see, okay, is it downloading the proper driver? Is it expanding properly? And I can troubleshoot it that way. And that makes this really valuable from a tech standpoint.
All right, cool. That's really the exact use case I'm looking for, is that, hey, so it's not so much that you're validating that, hey, the driver installed successfully, even if the hardware is not there, but you want to, because so many of these driver sets is like, well, you have to install this one first and it requires 3 reboots in the middle. You're like, whoa, why did that happen? And now you're failing.
Here's this process here right now. It's found the executable, and I have a function reading, obviously, the internal file name to know this is an HP, so it knows the switches to decompress this file and expand them out. And now you can see it's expanded it, and it's installing the drivers that are in this directory that it just created that didn't exist before.
That's super cool.
Hello. So what's neat is because the drivers are completely installed, you can capture this image from Hyper-V. You can capture this into a WIM, and you should be able to restore it on that hardware, and everything will just install. but we try and get out of capturing custom whims with autopilot, don't we? So it kind of defeats the purpose.
Cool. Hello, David.
Questions?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
I
had
can
a
hear
question.
Nice to meet you, Jason from Colombia. First of all,
Hi.
thank you. I think that definitely this is a great milestone for the community. I think that many years has been spent trying to fix this type of problems, and OSDCloud is an incredible solution to keep forward the vision for this. And my question is, I've been using this solution for I think 2 or 3 months, and I have an issue related creating a Windows P image, including the driver of the Wi-Fi in the WinP environment. I think you mentioned, I don't know if I'm misunderstanding, but is a requirement that the OSDCloud module is or must be installed in a wireless computer with a working connection to extract these drivers to include in the ISO, or because I'm using actually a server, but it doesn't work very well. But I think this is a process.
You have to use Windows 10 to build, because I don't believe that Windows recovery environment for server includes wireless.
Okay, right.
So so yeah, just build Windows 10 and it'll work just fine.
Okay.
One thing I can show you is I happen to be Dart remote controlled into a physical machine, and this computer is connected to Wi-Fi.
Okay.
I don't know if you can all see this, but there is no physical Ethernet in this computer, and I'm going to go ahead and kick off OSDCloud, and you can see how fast it is on Wi-Fi. It'll get there pretty quick. Let's just make sure OSD module's up to date. And I believe this is a Latitude 7420 2-in-1. I can double check that in just a second. But it sure is nice having a PowerShell gallery work in PE. It's because now you can write so many different functions and share them with the community for OS deployment.
Right.
So I'm going to start OSDCloud GUI again. It's minimizing that PowerShell window, and I'm just going to choose 21H1. I'm just going to leave it at the defaults. And we can see this is detected as a Dell OA37 product, which is a Latitude 7420. And we'll just kick that off and see what happens. We'll see how quick it can download this file. You can see this is the Dell link for the driver. Skip autopilot injection in this one, because we just want to see how fast wireless actually works. And I think you'll find it's pretty surprising. So in fact, yeah, this computer is Wi-Fi on my home network, and I am connected. My laptop I'm on right now is Ethernet, and it's downloading some pretty good speed, 60 megabytes per second. I believe in my virtual machine, it took 3 minutes to image, and that was Ethernet connected. And this looks like it's going to, the total time, 57 seconds. This is how long it's taken to download. It's already received 2 gigs out of 3.5. So wireless, it's pretty quick. About a minute.
Nice. Very
What's
nice,
that?
David. Then that means that definitely is a prerequisite that I run the OSDCloud for now in a Windows 10 device.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Welcome. So this actually brings us, we can transition to AutopilotOOBE at this point, when you image a computer, this is exactly where you get dropped off after all the hardware is installed. And what we call this is out-of-box experience, OOBE. We'll shift gears and go to presentation number 2. If we're ready, do we have any other questions on OSDCloud? Again, I'm David Segura. You see my Twitter handle down there and no Facebook. So let's get to it. We've already done this, but I am still not a PowerShell expert, according to this. So AutopilotOOBE, it's a XAML, it's a GUI front end for Michael Niehouse's Get Windows Autopilot info script that's used in out-of-box experience to join a computer to a Microsoft Azure tenant. So what I've done is I've created a simple GUI that makes things easier. Now, I know this is a PowerShell user group, and you guys are probably thinking creating a GUI to a function, that's just ridiculous. I have reasons. And I guess the biggest reason is we have an IT department of, at least 100 people, and learning PowerShell is just not for everybody. Even some of our techs, they just don't want to do it. And I need to ensure that they follow a process perfectly. And the only way I can do that is if I kind of shape something to where the only way they can do it is what I've built. And so this is the XAML. This is the GUI for, this is AutopilotOOBE. It is a simple form. A brief description here. This is the current Windows version, is the subtitle. It has fields for group tag, add to group, assign user, assign computer name, post action, and whether we want to wait for it to assign. There's also a version of the PowerShell module in the lower left. In the lower right, it tells me if I'm running TPM 2.0 or not, because I need this for user attestation. I don't even know what that means. And some information about my Dell computer and the BIOS version I'm running. Because if something fails, I kind of need to know all of this information. And I have a run box on the bottom as well as docs. And this is probably better left for the demo. So why make it? Well, this ensures consistency for my IT staff. And additionally, I can make changes to this front end that support my environment. Now, I look at this and nothing's filled out. And so you can type in anything you want. This is where mistakes happen. And so what I've done is I've taken this one step further, and you can see here, we have a customization here, SoCal PS user group autopilot enrollment. And you can see the group tag is populated. So is the post action. The assign is checked automatically. And in my run and my docs, I've already got things set by default. So it's quite different from the original front end. And I think what's important is showing how easy this is to customize. And the best way I can show you is if I show it to you in Windows. My command is that gets minimized and this front end pops up. Additionally, it will pop open a nice separate window that's going to go through and test all of these Microsoft network connections that are important to Autopilot to make sure it succeeds. And this was important in my environment because we needed to know which holes to put in the firewall and what holes were not there that were preventing these machines from accessing Azure Active Directory. And so when we run Autopilot OOBE, this window pops up in the background automatically. It's another function. This is called Test Autopilot Network, and it tests all these different IP addresses, these server names and ports to make sure they're registered in DNS, to make sure they can be accessed. And as you can see, it's written to my Windows temp directory in a log file. So this is something when my desktop support staff says, hey, we had a problem registering this device. I can say, well, let's see your logs. And this looks very basic, but in order to customize it for SoCal, we can do something called a custom profile. And what I did was I created this today and uploaded it to PowerShell Gallery, and simply providing the filling in this parameter for SoCal customizes it in such a way where I have 3 different group tags, or I can put. So this is very helpful in the fact that I can add my own, or I can take one of these pre-assigned group tags. Post action, I can shut down the computer, uncheck this. Open network and wireless settings. This is very important when we're in Windows pre-installation environment. But what I've done in this run box is I've created probably the most commonly used commands. Command prompt, PowerShell, ICE, WinExplorer, prep, but also some things such as launching Event Viewer and getting Autopilot diagnostics. And while these may seem, very simple to do, keep in mind this is where we're running this. We're running it in this this box experience phase. And I can show you this by running it. Let's go run it here. So the first thing I'll do is set my execution policy. Oops. And we'll go ahead and install Autopilot OOBE. And I know this window is a little small. We'll fix that. We're just waiting on the PowerShell gallery. And if I Alt-Tab, I can see what's happening in the background. There's all my ports being checked. And this would have popped up automatically had I not been looking at the other window. But we want the SoCal version of this. So let's do the SoCal version. And this is why this run becomes so important, because I can easily come here and click on things like Event Viewer. And if I was a tech, knowing these commands, open this up is quite invaluable if you didn't know how to do this. One of the neat things that I'm working on is, for example, with Event Viewer, we look under Custom View. I've created a custom view for MDM diagnostic tool, and this view is actually going to give me all of the events that are related to autopilot. I've got other things like MDM diagnostics tool that I can run, or I can even come here to the docs and I can say, okay, troubleshoot autopilot OOBE issues. And what I've done is I've linked all the important autopilot documents in this GUI to where my techs can come in here and they can say, oh, here's the issues I was having, and maybe they can fix it themselves. And you'll see there's quite a slew of documents related to this. But what I can do is I can simply come in here and register, and it's going to install Get Windows Autopilot Info and pass these parameters onto Get Windows Autopilot Info, just like that. And I would sign in here, and this would upload the hash to my computer, my virtual machine, register it in Autopilot, and I'd be good to go. I would just need to continue from here. And this is exactly what AutopilotOOBE is for. And I can probably best show you how many things you can customize by actually showing you the code. You guys are the PowerShell group, but so this is what you want to see. I have my parameter for custom profile. Different kind of actions. This is where I can disable different sections. I can even hide different sections. And then these are all the other parameters. The post action, I tell it the default is quit, but these can all be set automatically, including the title. And that's what makes this highly customizable. For SoCal, I simply pre-added this profile here, where I simply added these variables automatically so that when I type in Get Windows Autopilot Info, where I type in start Autopilot OOBE with SoCal, it's going to take these variables and assign this title here, and it's going to hide, add to group, and assign computer name, and it's going to give me this network wireless is going to be my default in run. So it originally opened here, and then I can change that. So the goal here, and if you dig in the code, you're going to find this anyway. This is how we customize things for my company, which I won't name. And I've even added things like adding another PowerShell module, OSD module, and then updating the Dell BIOS whenever they come in here into this autopilot enrollment. So it is something that can be customized and stored in PowerShell Gallery, so that whenever someone from my company wants to register a device, they're going to get exactly the way that I want it configured for that machine. Does that make any sense? I hope somebody sees this as useful.
Amen. Amen. No, I think this is awesome.
Thanks. I probably feel like this is not.
How long have you been working on this? Like, I feel like, I only discovered it a couple months ago, and it's like very, very mature.
So the modules we're looking at here is Autopilot OOBE is its own module. I'll pull up the PowerShell gallery, and that was very quick. Yeah, it has been running slow. And this module, only a couple revisions. It's only been a month, but I've still been playing with it. And there's only two functions. The only function is start AutopilotOOBE, which is alias to AutopilotOOBE, and then test Autopilot Network. So this is really a standalone module, and the only function of this is to present the Autopilot OBE screen. So if you guys want to learn how to do this, and keep in mind, again, I'm no expert, but this is a very simple module. You can copy and have a couple functions, and the wizard itself and the XAML code is all here. Also on GitHub as well, same name, under Segura OSD. As far as the OSD module, that has been around for quite a long time, and I find that I just keep adding to it and adding to it until it grows. But everything in the OSD module is 100% geared towards OS deployment. And see, I released a version just the other day, a couple downloads, but if you look at the history, yeah. So it's been growing for, I don't know, since 2019. There are over 100 commands in the OSD module that all relate to OS deployment. I was hoping I could show that.
Do you do all the development yourself, or a couple people helping with that, or how's that working with you?
So OSDCloud, I did have some help. I reached out to some people for some feedback. You know, a couple great people who, you know, helped get wireless going. Andrew on Twitter, sharp guy. I can't pronounce his last name, so I'm not going to try. But, you know, I've reached out to some people, but for the most part, it's been stuff that my team has needed for OS deployment, or, you know, when you learn a tip, normally you'll write it down and save it in your notes. I'll put it in the module itself and go that way. I mean, you can see, easiest thing to do is to see, I had a tweet today for an addition to the OSD module. We'll get to it here. And we can see here that this is a new function that I added to install the SSU out of LCU. So if you know anything about updates, you'll know what this means. Microsoft just combined the SSUs and the servicing stack with the cumulative update. So this splits it back out and installs the servicing stack, because you need the servicing stack before you can install the cumulative update. So this was added today, only one function, but you know, if you add one function a week, pretty soon you're going to get to a few hundred in no time.
Still impressed.
So thank you. I don't want to take up all your time. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we'll go back to hi there. We'll go back to chit chat mode.
We are here for you, so you know, everybody should feel free to ask questions, and you should feel free to keep talking.
So I'm looking at, you know, the best place for other stuff is what, osdeploy.com. Is that where you would point people to who want to learn some more about it, or, you know, kind of really speak with it?
I do share and put a lot of my work at osdeploy.com. Sometimes though, I'm in the middle of a week that is just busier than heck, and I may not have time to document, but I tweet out as much as I can, and I try not to get too political in my tweets. all typically they remain on topic
Yeah.
with OS deployment.
I think what I'm really kind of asking towards is some of the stuff like, you know, to see what else it's OSD is looking into and all the things it can do, and it really can meet all of my needs. It can do like at least 50% of the stuff that I'm like, I should have been looking at this a long time ago. So that's cool for me. Is basically just reading it from GitHub kind of stuff, what you're doing there, or digging through OS deploy. That's kind of their question, the nature of the question that I'm looking for or asking for.
Well, OSD is just so spread out. Autopilot's pretty new. So there's a lot of different aspects, whether it be updating whims, applying updates, security settings, and so it's. I wouldn't suggest trying to digest everything. I would honestly suggest looking into OSDCloud, because that's going to give you a taste for PowerShell Gallery in WinPE. It's going to enable you to do Wi-Fi in WinPE, and you can actually take the PE that comes that it spits out, that's uncustomized, that's part of the template, and you can actually import that into MDT. Using MDT, you can import it into SCCM as a boot image that it can use, and you'll have a boot image with wireless capabilities, which some people who some of my Twitter friends, they've actually done that. They've one guy named Jeff, he's using MDT, and he's added in his path sequence where it takes the drivers and it pulls them from the internet instead of his deployment share. So he's cut his deployment share down 100 gigs because he's pulling his drivers in real time. Now he works at a university where they have open internet. Things are fast, so I mean that won't work for everyone. But I know Andrew had been working with wireless deployment with SCCM, and these are all things that are kind of branching off of the work in OSDCloud. I never wrote OSDCloud to actually solve everyone's problems. It was more or less, this is an example of what you can do, and so people are taking from it whatever they can and going from there. So I would definitely recommend playing around with OSDCloud first.
Cool. Thanks.
And again, I'm going to stress, I'm not a PowerShell guy at all. I'm an OSD guy who is learning PowerShell, and it's a fun ride. I see you guys have a great user group. Kevin Marquette, he's probably one of the guys I've followed religiously and learned a lot from. So you guys have a great, awesome group. I'd love to come back and sit in the audience next time. Yeah, I'm learning. Take from it. Take from what I've done and do whatever. Copy it, steal it, as Johan would say. Stealing with pride.
I think all the PowerShell community is very inviting, and so we're happy to have you. So we're it's share the love.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we've had some questions in chat about GitHub, and they're all there. I would not link for the OSDCloud on GitHub. That's not what you think it is. OSDCloud is part of the OSD module, so that's what you want on GitHub. OSDCloud is like a simple repository. It's trash. You don't want it.
So wait, the GitHub, the one that you posted, one from David's time, that's what is something else?
Yeah, he posted an OSDCloud, but that's kind of one thing that OSDCloud can do is you can run a script that actually sits on GitHub instead of using the wizard. And that's something else that OSDCloud can do, and that's where I'm hosting the script at that link. But let me see if I can find what you guys want where OSDCloud is.
So you're saying that I could host the config file on some other repository and just have it pull from there directly?
Oh, yeah. Do you want to see that?
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, let's share.
Give me.
And do we have time for that? I don't want to step on anyone's toes.
Yeah, for sure. Anyone who wants to stick around is welcome to.
So we want to look at OSDCloud. And on OSDCloud, this is we can see demo, custom OSDCloud. Anyway, this is just a sample, my raw link. Anyway, it's an example that you can take this link and then let's cancel out of here. Let's just open a new instance.
So just level set here, what we're looking at, and I'm just going to prep it, and then you can correct me where, is effectively this is the script to do an OSDCloud deployment, and so you could effectively host this PS1 and then just pull it down, invoke web request it, get it, and then just basically execute from the web or from any repository. That's really what it is, right? Or am I wrong?
Yeah. So this is my workspace. I've got a command get OSDCloud workspace, and everything I've booted from has been in here. So this is what the workspace looks like. Now what I want to do is, instead of just dumping me in WinPE at a bare PowerShell prompt, I can edit OSDCloud WinPE, and I can tell it WebPS script, and I can pipe this script that I've got in GitHub, and I can do cool stuff like PS module install. I don't know. You can add another PowerShell module like this, and we'll do verbose so we can see what's going on. Finally, this is where I have something called Cloud Driver, where I can add VMware drivers straight into my WinPE. And this is going to mount the WinPE that's in my workspace under this media directory. Sources, it's mounting this file right now. And what it's going to do, it's going to take this WebPS script and tell StartNet, run this. And so once I have it provisioned to talk to a script in GitHub as my startup script, I can now customize that startup script to anything I want. I mean, right? Now you're not tied into telling your techs, when you get in WinPE, run these commands. It's just going to be all automatic. You see here, this is it's editing StartNet, adding wireless support, adding the link that I gave it, and then saving the OSD Builder module that I told it to save using whatever switch that was. Should be done in a second. So this is a very easy way for me to inject additional PowerShell modules into WinPE. Of course, you can just install it in WinPE, which is what I prefer to ensure you get the latest. But if you need to put something in there, there's even a copy module command, so that if you've written your own PowerShell module and it's not public, you can use the copy parameter and it'll copy it off your system. So this is how you get custom code into WinPE, we could see it's dismounting the Windows image. I like to close Windows Explorer while it's doing that. This really didn't take any time, minute 57 seconds. Now I'm going to create a new ISO. Again, this is pretty quick in itself. And what this has done, this has created 2 ISOs for me in my SoCal, one with a prompt and one with no prompt. 942, that's exactly it. And so now I can come back in here and let's check and make sure SoCal, that's correct. And let's see what happens when I boot up. Hopefully, if it goes well, it should go straight to my GitHub and run the PowerShell script there. What you saw was the first PowerShell instance minimized. Now this wants to run wireless because this WinPE was built off of RE, but obviously there's no wireless adapter, so it fails completely. And you can see here, it says starting Segura's custom, whatever. And if we look back here, this should be exactly what is in GitHub. So yes, you can write your own custom deployment, and I see I set res to 1600. So we see the display resolution is now wider. I've told it to go ahead and wipe the drive automatically and do all these things. Let's see. Start OSDCloud. This is the command and as you can see, that's all. There's no user input here. That's about as hands off as you get.
Yeah, it's still super cool.
So yeah, write your own, set your own parameters. And again, the neat thing is this all exists in GitHub, so I can change this script at any time I want, and I won't have to modify my boot images. They're pointing to the script. They're going to read the script in real time. This is a very good, it's a very good demo environment, test environment. So there you go. And we see, let's open up the command prompt. This is the commands it's actually running. I think it's important to see this WinPE init. We're going to start PowerShell, no logo, window minimized. And then we're going to start wait PowerShell, no logo with the Wi-Fi, which exited out because there were no wireless adapters. Finally, we're going to start PowerShell, no logo with command start sleep for 5 seconds to let it initialize. We're going to invoke WebP script, which is part of the OSD module. And here's the link here, and that's exactly what it's doing. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
This OS downloaded in about a minute and 17 seconds. Not bad. Let's go back. And
so before you said you reached out to the community overall, you know, trying to get your help. Are you looking for help and stuff like that with this, or it's just a little pet project and I run with it?
It is a pet project. I do have a day job, but honestly, this is all stuff that I'm sharing with the community for you to use. And by all means, if there's something you want to add, if you want to contribute, absolutely. There are a couple of people that do contribute. My inbox is full. But yes, I mean, I'm open to people helping. If you guys are probably better at PowerShell than I am, so if you want to work on some PowerShell help or you've got some ideas, yeah, just send me a message. I'm open to anything.
Cool. Yeah, you probably get some feedback.
Let's see. I'm going to look in chat to see if we have any other questions. Cool. Good evening. Welcome, Jason. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, David. Amazing job, definitely. So proud of this.
Thanks, Jason. It's a lot of work, I'll tell you that. And as soon as we get off, I've got to look at some of this print spooler updates that Microsoft released tonight. So go from there. Do you want to see what's coming? Does anybody?
Yeah, and so Dave Stein asked what's on your list of issues.
Let's look here. Let me pull up a script real quick. I sent it to a buddy of mine. Let me see if I can find the gist. Because this is going to be very topical as soon as I get this out. And you guys will appreciate this because y'all like PowerShell, right?
Yep.
And Johan's still on. He may want to see this too. Let's see. Where is my sharing? Sharing is caring. All right. So you guys understand this, right? We're just going to do a sim instance query, and we're going to return a nice GUID. And the GUID is actually the GUID for my BIOS update. It tells it what a match for my BIOS is. And what I can do with that is I can save that in a variable hardware ID, and then I can throw it into this function get MS catalog update. And guys, I can't take credit for this. This is part of the MS catalog module. But what I can do here is I can take this file and run this, and it's going to save this in temp. Open up my temp. And if I look here, I have a nice driver package that was downloaded at 950. This is, and what's inside here is a firmware INF, a firmware bin. This is the BIOS update I need for my computer that was pulled from Microsoft Catalog website. So I don't hear anybody saying how cool this is, and this is it here, Precision 7x30 update. This is a Dell, and just to kind of prove what we're talking about here, let's go to, I never have this site memorized, I swear, but let's take this GUID here and let's pop it in here, and we can see that if we sort these, it gives me a BIOS update. And you can very easily see this is the match. I guess the point that I'm getting here is this simple script should be able to get all the BIOS updates for any UEFI computer that's by Dell or Lenovo or HP right here. And once it's downloaded, they can be installed as part of Windows Update.
Amen.
So this is coming. I'm going to work on tweaking this, but there will literally be a script that pulls the BIOS updates from Microsoft, which is more up to date than Dell's cab file that we've been pulling it from. So there's that.
Cool.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah. I wasn't even aware you pull it from Microsoft catalog.
Well, you know, they announced they're going to have driver updates by the end of the year. Obviously, they timed it with Windows 11. So it looks like they go back to all supported models are going to be in the Microsoft catalog. So hopefully that'll help where we can pull drivers from there. But you know, I'm looking to see what I can do. So
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Just the idea of, you know, doing the whatever the latest Microsoft known, you know, BIOS update is like, yeah. I can think of a lot of things to do with that.
Yeah.
Again, thanks.
no, you're very welcome. Yeah, thanks for having me, and love the community. That's all I can say.
Do we have any final questions, David? We have a few more minutes, but otherwise we can give those few minutes back, and everybody can have a good night while David investigates the next feature.
Well, thanks, David, for all that you do to the community, and for, you know, you're giving a lot back to the OSD community, and certainly giving a lot back to the PowerShell community as well. And so appreciate it, and thank you.
Awesome, thanks, man. Glad to hear that. That means a ton. Hey, let's call it a night, man. Who's ready for a beer?
Amen. Good night. Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
everyone.
Sounds good. Have a good night, everybody.
Hey, if you guys have any other questions, just shoot me a message on Twitter, tweet, DM, doesn't matter.